everybody. You're listening to the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
And I'm Steve Morey.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in. And thank you for joining us for our 200th episode. Wow. Yeah. We're a lot older than a 200th episode. If we had stayed to like a weekly thing, we would have hit that long ago. But there were points where we were a monthly podcast. There were points where we skipped a month. And then there were points where we had 5 shows in a month. So it's varied over time due to availability and what was going on in our lives. Since we had the lockdown, we've been pretty consistent coming at least every week or every other week. So that has piled the number of episodes up. When we did it 100th episode, we just kept it within the family, just the hosts that we had at the time, and just talked about the show and things that had transpired since people had joined the show and things like that. So this might be a bit unspectacular for some people, but we're also only a year away from our 10th anniversary. And that one, we promise you, we're going to make a very big deal. We hope to get, our former co-hosts on, get special guests on. As I was telling these guys, if I get a text from Kevin Smith before this episode's over, yes, he's coming on. But and honestly, I know the answer with Brian. I think this is more geared for Flame On, but Kevin Smith remains my dream guest. And Brian, I know at one point for Flame On, you had said George Takei. Is that still the case?
I mean, that would be good. Let's just go with that. I like that.
Okay.
Still.
All right. So, Steve, now we're going to put you on the spot. What would be your dream guest?
My dream guest. Oh gosh. Oh God, that's such a good. No. Now I have to actually think about putting me on the spot because I'm thinking like, all the writers and all the, the artists that I've wanted to have on the show as well.
Yeah.
Like a Mark Andreyko would be really cool to have on. Somebody like I mean, there's just a lot of options there, but I'm thinking, probably in a nod to you, Bill, but I think it'd be really pretty awesome if we had Dan DiDio on.
Mm-hmm. Oh. He'd have fun with that too. Like one of the things we had talked about ages ago was putting together a calendar and putting it with some people that would be gay men, but also some people that would not be gay men that really fit the type. And something tells me like DiDio would do it. Yeah.
He'd be like,
if it was for the charity, if it was, if it was for Hero Initiative or something like that. I have a short list.
We have a bunch of people already commenting.
All right. Well, let's bring the comments. All right, John. Hi.
From Comic Book Look there. Comic Book Bears Assemble.
Yep.
Hi, John.
Steve and I both chimed in last night. Hello, David Toby.
David Toby. Lovely to see you. More John Runyon. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Comic Book Look is, I'm sure, blown us away by many orders of magnitude.
Oh my God, yeah.
If
they started just before we did, and then have maintained a weekly scenario, yeah, God knows, yeah. I think our biggest gap was 2 months. I think we did skip 2 months once.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've skipped more than 2 months, so yeah. So I would assume the show probably also skipped more. We got James Figueredo. Good evening, handsome nerds.
Oh, thank
Congratulations.
you.
All the emojis. Our buddy Jack Foster, fabulously entertaining artist.
Fan favorite Jack Foster.
Fan favorite indeed. All caps. You already had your dream guest. True. The koala of comics. Is that what? That's what it is. Yeah. That was right up there on the list. Oh, I know. Wait, he's posing, of course.
Yeah. How does the koala of comics pose?
Oh yeah.
Oh yes, they were.
I mean, I'll go back and see if I find a picture from that era. In fact, actually, no, I did find one the other day.
Yeah.
And yeah. 100%.
We were audio then, but I'm certain we both were. And we can make it again. I got the bottle in the bathroom.
I've been playing a lot with makeup and with beard coloring, so that could be a thing we could do sometime if we want. Bill, I remember one of our New York Comic Con, like the first time we went there, and I have a picture of you, me, and Justin with the We Bear Bears, that giant inflated thing. And that was, we were darker haired then.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I have a picture of us, I think, at Baltimore,
Mhm.
and you can just see the gray coming in for both of us
Oh.
a little bit, you know. like my gray's been around a while, but
Yeah,
you know,
same. No, I
use
it just
the bottle.
trickled in.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, it's really hard to justify it being in lockdown. You know, who's gonna see me? I don't know. Just you
Right.
folks.
Okay,
Yeah,
so Jack wants to see. He wants to
I
see
have
it.
the Silver Daddy rep to maintain at this point, so.
Yes.
I guess. So the Comic Book Bears podcast began in March of 2012. My first co-host was Justin Allen. Brian came on very quickly. He was on our third episode and was a regular by our sixth episode. So he's kind of like Captain America, you know.
Oh, well, thank you. I like
No,
that.
seriously, like he's attained founder status.
I like that.
And then Brian and well, why don't, since you were talking about it, talk about how you guys met.
Well, I think I had been listening to Comic Book Bears and Flame On, because Brian was just great to listen to both times. I love listening to you guys, to you and Bill and Justin, and then I followed you over to Flame On as well and was listening to you there. And I think that's when I kind of I actually just reached out and messaged you. I was like, you know what, I'm love what you guys are doing at Flame On, love what you guys are doing on Comic Book Bears. I'm going to be at Heroes Con, and we ended up meeting up at that point and walking the floor together, which was a lot of fun, and getting to know each other and getting to hang out. And you and Bill had basically were like, hey, why don't we just have him on, because we're going to be talking about Heroes Con.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to come on and do literally my first ever podcast. Not just guest spot, but like actual first time on a podcast, and had a great time. And I know we kept in touch. We were chatting after that, and then a few months later, actually, you had called me back and were like, "Hey, you want to guest on again? You had a lot of fun when you were there." So I got to come on again and have my second ever podcast. And right afterwards, you guys were like, "You want to keep coming back?" I was like,
My
"Yeah."
literal words were, "We're keeping him." Those are my literal words.
He's
And then
mine.
after you had come on, then Matt Brossard joined the show
Yep.
for a time. And then we went from being the Avengers to the Defenders and sort of a non-team. And that's when we brought on Caleb because, he had a break in time, at least with his law school classes. From what he's telling us, Thursdays are monsters for him now.
Yeah.
And he'll be back. I'm sorry, I'm coughing, trying not to do that. But
So I have to let's just do a quick little photo scrapbook through memory lane here.
Okay, cool.
So there's I believe, is this Baltimore? I think this is Baltimore.
Is definitely Baltimore. This is definitely Baltimore.
That looks like Baltimore.
And then let's see. I think I have another one. I'm not sure which direction
It's
gonna
definitely
go.
Baltimore, because Baltimore doesn't give out the lanyards.
Oh yeah.
So if you see if people have their.
I thought I had another one. Let me find it. I definitely have another one of us with. Oh, well, it's you and me, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I got one more here from Baltimore. And then I'm sure I can find that Bear, whatever one. But that's
that was the best cosplay ever. This dude who went as Starro. And also, I've met this guy since, and when he takes he is a really handsome fella.
Yeah,
he is a really, really handsome fella. So yeah, that was Baltimore.
I'm trying to find Heroes, which I should have my own Heroes album at this point.
Yeah.
I also found an early picture of me and Ramon Perez, which I was very excited to find. Let's see, Heroes. But
dream guests, really,
I don't know. I'll find it. But I really love how organic this show has always flowed, as far as collecting individuals and kind of moving from here to there. I had to drop away, obviously, at some certain points, and you guys carried the torch really well for a guy. It was like 6 months for a run.
Yeah,
I think
I think
Yeah,
your
when you were in
biggest gap
Japan.
was like, I think your biggest gap was 8 months.
8 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think your biggest gap was 8 months. And, I really want to, stress with Caleb's another story because his story there's no coda to it yet. But, just what Justin brought to the show and what Matt brought to the show, the amazing artwork that Matt provided for us at points.
Oh, yeah.
I definitely want to, so you might have that.
I
somewhere.
do indeed. I just got to find it in this giant archive of stuff. But no, Matt and Justin, I mean, we still keep, obviously Matt has been on watching from time to time and is very active on our Discord for Flame On and then with Comic Book Bears too. So he's definitely still in our orbit. We'd love to hear from Justin if anyone knows how to get a hold of him.
We like his stuff on Facebook, but I think it's been both the case for. I can't speak for Steve, but I know for Bryan and myself, messages have just not gotten answered.
Yeah, I mean, he was off social media for a while, and there's life has gotten in the way a lot of times for all of us, and I know for Justin that was especially the case for quite a while. So
yeah, I mean, I think you go through all three of us, and there were other points in our lives where I just invented a word, points. There were points in our lives where this wouldn't have been possible. Time wise, it just wouldn't have. And I know, Bryan, you enter points that it still gets to be an issue. Most of my recordings have been from hotel rooms. Prior to
I
the
don't
shutdown.
know how you do that. And I'm about to hit one of those points in my life again when they start sending me on the road. And with audio, I can certainly like make it sort of work, but with this setup, it's like, no.
Well,
absolutely not.
What I did was I don't think we ever had an audio from a video from the hotel. I've done plenty of Movie Bears guest spots.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, I want to mention, Movie Bears podcast, which has definitely been a brother podcast through their time with us. And, we certainly miss Wendy's double page spread.
Yep.
Freeman, that she's our Goldilocks. Effectively, and I know she loves hearing that too. So, it's been quite a ride for 9 years and 200 episodes. We actually have more than 200 episodes because we've had a 0 episode. We've had one episode that was 4 hours long, and I chopped the audio in half because it just too much. That was with Jamal Eigel. And
I know we've had at least a couple.
We just kept talking and talking on that one.
We've had at least a couple like lost episodes for this, that, and the other reason, I'm sure, right?
No. Well, we have everything that is on the iTunes feed and Libsyn. Every show's been recovered at this point.
Oh, good.
Well,
excellent.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking there were a couple recordings that unfortunately.
There was a classic one with me and Justin. Bryan was already on the show, but he couldn't record with us. So we had already had the date together, and then Bryan was gonna come in next week. So he said, let's just get together and just do like a fill-in episode in case we have to release it later. And it was a really good conversation. We each picked like 7 members of a Justice League group that we put together and 7 members of an Avengers group that we put together and other questions that we asked each other. It was really good. And then when I went to seal it, only 16 seconds were audible.
Yeah. And there were also, I do recall, there were also a couple like really good episodes that we had, with most of the cast together. And, the Skype recording just was not, like, something happened to it. It was awful. And I remember that there was one in particular, Bill, where you were like, your heart was broken because we had some really good conversation with it. I can't even remember what it was, but it was just like, it just didn't record. And that's what happens in podcasts. You can't.
But I can't say with each episode we did have enough to generate an episode. Yeah. And I think what some of you guys were thinking about was when we were part of the Earth 2 network. When Earth 2 network went kaput, there were some episodes that were only on that feed. I eventually got everything onto the iTunes.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good.
So every
the lost episodes are available.
He is amazing, Matt.
Yeah, it's so great.
So this I actually in my old office I actually had this framed right next to my desk. So every time that we would record, I could just look right over at it, seated, and just be able to see everybody. Because as most people know, if you've been listening for a long time, we didn't have the video streaming. We were audio only for a very long time until last year at the start of the pandemic. So when I wanted to talk to these guys, I would actually look at the pictures, like talking to Matt and talking to these guys. Like it was fun. It was fun for me to do.
I love that.
And I mean it's definitely I really love that we've transitioned to having a video stream. So the audience can see us, and we can see each other. Because when we were recording on Skype, it was audio only, and so this is just fun. I get to actually see you guys every week when we do this. So
that's so funny. I love that you did that with the picture there. We actually gave those out at like conventions. We had a whole stack of them. We would hand them out for people who wanted them.
In one of these boxes, of course, it's the one way on the bottom. I still have a stack of.
I do too.
I have, and I also have the one when the first New York live show that we did.
Mm-hmm.
There's that great picture of me, like with the arms spread. And,
I love that picture.
And Justin and you looking at me like, is he gonna fly?
It was great. I have a couple more comments in here. David Tovey's got to go. So good luck. Later. Keep working. Although then he did chime in. Surprised you all haven't mentioned Kirkman as your dream guest. Well,
yeah, I mean,
I mean, I think that goes without saying. Matt Wagner. Probably would be like.
I mean, I could probably realize. Oh my god! I just said his name. Ramon. I could totally get Ramon on the show, and it's one of those things where and I've talked to him so many times, and I'm not like worried that he's one of those type of people where it would be bad. But there's something about it where I just haven't made it happen. And I don't know why.
I know. Like that's with me with Brett Schoonover. I've talked to him. I've talked to him about the Packers, because he's a Wisconsin dude. And I just, for some reason, I just can't transition over to that conversation.
Now, Hickman is one who I did have a chance to moderate a panel with. And based on that panel and just everything I know about him since, never ever going to happen. Not that he wouldn't necessarily be interesting. I know he would be, but I've heard interviews with him that actually were fine, but it's just intimidating as hell because he is so smart. He's really funny, but he can turn on a dime and get surly, and it's like, speaking of fellow show motes, he must have heard his name.
If your ears were burning,
yeah. Well, I like how he says, like, let me play your sandbox a few times. I think there was like a few times, girl, in a row, plus more.
We also had James Westhoff, Boo Earth 2.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we love Matt's art too. It's fantastic. Yeah.
And of course, John Westhoff, it amazes me that when he was on a couple weeks ago, that was first time on Comic Book Beers proper, because we've had Earth 2 crossover episodes, and I've been on the show on their old show. So it was weird. I was like, John's never been on the show. I'm like looking back on that. Yeah, it's weird. And I also think that's kind of testimony to the friendships you make through this. Again, one of my favorite experiences was just a year and a half ago when Matt and Bryan and Steve and myself and some of the other halves were together at Heroes.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to remind us all, Emerald City has not been canceled. It might be one of the only shows this year in person.
The only thing that's weird with that is like it's so close to C2E2's new date.
Oh, they moved that. That's right. Yeah.
So they moved that. I just want to see where New York Comic Con lands and kind of base.
Yeah, it's fair.
I'd also love to go into a city that's not a home city for any of us. I bet that would be fun.
I mean, that's
You
kind of what Baltimore was like, but we
Yeah.
only did the
True,
one
you're right.
time.
You're right. Yeah.
And New York is
But Steve
close
is
for you, right?
Steve has
So
gone. Steve and I have met up at Baltimore twice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, twice.
Twice,
And then
yeah.
also, well, once at New York because every time you guys were up at New York Comic Con, like every single time I was like, I can't get up there, I have work or whatever, except for one time, and it was just Bill and me. So I missed everybody else, but I love that one day
I love
was
that.
awesome.
And I
Such a
also
fun
I
day.
also seriously love that you ate at one of my favorite Asian restaurants when we got back to New Jersey.
Yes, we took the train back to back to the state your station and ate at the Asian I forget what it was called, but that restaurant was huge. It has like two or three floors, and
And outside, yeah.
they
It
sell
has the
everything.
incredibly complex name of Asian fusion. That's the name.
really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Is that a path? That's a path train, right?
No.
Oh,
it's
you don't take
No.
path?
transit.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
me and the path. We take New Jersey Transit, and then there are sections where you have to get on the path to get, like, especially Lower Manhattan.
I've
That's
always
basically the only sensible way in there.
every time I'm by Rock Bar on Christopher Street, I always pass that path station, and I'm like, I really want to take it because I know it's like a tunnel under the harbor, right? It's under the river, East River.
Oh,
No?
honey, it stinks. All underground transport retains some smell of urine, but the path, unless it's World Trade Center, because that's all like nice and redone and stuff.
Yeah.
But Christopher Street, ooh.
It gives you the feel of New York, right in your
like,
nostrils.
Brian wanted to do this, yeah. And it's not always that bad, but the summers, Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, the summers is like that. That's like a ring of hell.
Well, Jason and I went to a wedding in Manhattan, or actually, no, I think it ended up being in Brooklyn, and we stayed in Newark, right across. So we actually took the train into, basically World Trade Center, the new station when they had opened it up and everything. It was really, really nice. I like staying in Newark because you had suggested, Bill, a Portuguese restaurant that we never would have thought about.
Yes.
And we ended up walking down to it because it wasn't too far from our hotel. And it was great. It was wonderful. But like getting around, getting into the train station, getting into the city was so easy.
If you ever stay in the New York area and end up in Newark, this is my suggestion for people who are watching right now. There is a section called the Ironbound section where all the restaurants are, and you literally do a Latin America travel. You hit Costa Rica, you hit the Dominican restaurants, you hit the Portuguese. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing, and it goes on for about 7 blocks. Actually, more. It's like probably 11 blocks, but it also gets less safe the farther down you go. But it's amazing. I was a thin lad until
you met that street. Well, and it's funny when we went. It was like I think it was a Peruvian festival of some sort. So like there were parades, which was just really cool. Like my husband and I are just sort of like, well, we came at the right time.
Okay, well, I'm going to go through the history that I put together of stuff that's gone down since we started the podcast. I'll take a break with every year, and you guys can tell me if there's stuff that you like from that time or particular things you remember. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, cool. So again, we started the podcast in March of 2012. The New 52 had started the last week of August in 2011 with Justice League #1. And we also hit on March 2012 was the first issue of Saga that month. So we're as old as Saga. Other books that came out in 2012 that have had some resonance and some lasting power, the Manhattan Projects, The
Mm.
Secret Service, which became the film franchise The Kingsman.
Yep.
This was also the year of Avengers versus X-Men. And
Yep.
this also marked the return of Valiant with X-O Man of War #1, the revival of that. 2012, we had Before Watchmen.
Yeah.
Carol Danvers became Captain Marvel that year.
Oh gosh.
Matt Fraction began his run on Hawkeye, which was a tremendous, fantastic run.
Yeah.
Another independent book that has lasted, Mind Management or Mind
Mhm.
Migament.
Oh yay.
Yeah, you also had Marvel digital codes and DC combo packs, so people were getting books digitally and
The
in print at the
combo
same time.
packs. Oh my god, I forgot about the combo packs.
And they
Yeah.
came in plastic because they
Yep.
didn't want people opening them up to get the code for free
Yep.
or whatever.
2012 was also the first time that characters that were headlining, I should say title characters, were headlining mainstream comic books that were LGBT characters. So 2012 was the first year that we had ongoings for Batwoman and for Kevin Keller.
Mhm.
Oh,
That's true.
Okay. We led into Marvel Now at the end of the year, and there were many series that came out of that. Hickman's Avengers, which later led to Infinity and a bunch of other things. Bendis's run with the all-new X-Men and the Uncanny X-Men, and this was when Jason Aaron began his epic run on Thor. And the highest selling book that year in 2012 was Walking Dead #100, which was not
Right.
good news for one character. And I have a trivia question for you two right
okay.
now. Okay, so again, 2012 was the year of Marvel Now beginning. What was the first Marvel Now ongoing series?
I'm gonna guess the Nova Kid.
Okay, Steve, do you have a guess there?
Was it? Because I'm trying to think if this was about that time. Is it the Spider-Man book where Dr. Octopus had
Superior
taken over
Spider-Man?
Superior Spider-Man?
You are both wrong. The
Not
first
shocked.
Marvel Now ongoing series was Uncanny Avengers.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, I only have one other trivia question for you, so don't get too.
Woo!
Okay,
good.
we move on to 2013, and the big Marvel crossover that year was Age of Ultron. And some other books that had their first issue that year were East of West. Sex Criminals began that year.
Yes.
Sex Criminals.
Afterlife with Archie, which has continued a progression into a little more adult take on the Riverdale characters. There was the first issue of the Harley Quinn, courtesy of Palmiotti and Connor, which at this point has been almost as long as the podcast. The biggest controversy that year in regards to LGBT characters was when Orson Scott Card was going to do a Superman series, Superman story. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yep. And the best-selling issue that year was Walking Dead #115.
Oh my gosh!
Interesting. 2 years in a row, The Walking Dead was the number one for the whole year. Because I know that normally, like, when Diamond was still distributing DC, normally, like, every month you were hitting Batman. It was always a Batman book, Batman book. Walking Dead was usually up there, but like every month it was Batman. It doesn't surprise me because I know that Walking Dead, obviously with the show going strong at that time, it's still, I think, relatively young, right? It had come out maybe 2009.
I think it was in its So, but this was kind of its height of popularity.
Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me, but.
I'm looking at the list of 2013 stuff too. I love the fact that Sex Criminals, even though it just wrapped up, right, just recently. I love the run that it had. I love that it basically launched Chip Zdarsky into everything, like, as an artist and as a writer. I love that series so much. I don't know that it landed well, but I actually need to go back and probably finish the last couple issues. But I still don't feel like overall it reflected maybe more of the reality of relationships than the the arc of a story that's epic and what have you. But I remember at Heroes going to the party that they had after the convention. It was over at the Buffalo Wild Wings. I don't remember. Did either of you go to that? I don't remember if
No.
It would have been before. I think that was.
that was before you went to Heroes.
Yeah. That's before I went to Heroes. Yeah.
So it was, and I cannot think of the term they used for their fans. Oh my gosh, it's gonna kill me. If anybody in the chat remembers, please let me know. But I still have
sex criminal fans.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I still have, I've talked about this on the show. I sold all my comics. I kept a long box full of stuff. I believe one of those, and I should have dug it out, is their original like variant doodle that Matt and Chip did, and then they were going to put these in these poly bags and sort of do this whole random draw thing, and they couldn't do it because they started using like trademark stickers from Disney and all this other stuff that they knew they were going to get in trouble for. So they instead just handed them out at this party. It was epic. I was so glad I went to it.
Yeah, Sex Criminals was responsible for one of my favorite variant covers for #1. If you remember the photo cover of the two of them.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's standing behind
like a
with the
Woolworth
sweaters.
picture. Yeah.
Brimpers.
Okay.
Yes.
I also found out today, and I don't know how this passed me. Chip Zdarsky, that's not his real name.
Oh no?
It's Steve Murray is his real name.
Well, okay. I mean, Chip Zdarsky is a little more memorable than but Steve Murray. I mean, you could think Bill Murray. I mean, I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
All right. Well, we're moving on to 2000. Yep, we're moving on to 2014, and here's some of the big developments. We had the first issue of Deadly Class. That was the start of the Miracle Man reprints at Marvel.
Oh yeah.
Roughly, I think 2 years after they acquired the character, maybe. The maybe came later. We had the first issue of the Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel.
Yes, that's right. 2014.
Marvel actually had 2 events that year. They had Original Sin, and they also had Axis, or as we were calling it, Sixus.
Either were fantastic. Oof.
Yep. The Wiccan and the Divine had its first issue that year. We had the first issue of Grayson, which basically was the start of Tom King's writing career for DC Comics. We had some deaths. The first one was In Life with Archie, of that version of Archie being killed due to gun violence, if you remember that storyline. And we had the death of Wolverine, and Wolverine actually stayed dead for a few years. Okay.
That was when he was basically buried in adamantium, or melted adamantium on him, and he died.
We also had the first issue of Spider-Gwen.
No,
it was the debut of Spider-Gwen in Edge of Spider-Verse. She's now known as Ghost Spider, but that's been a very popular character as time has gone on. We saw Marvel attempting to make the Inhumans happen in comic books. Just didn't happen. Grant Morrison's Multiversity was in 2014, and there were some amazing books through that. We had the Batgirl of Burnside, which was a popular interpretation of Barbara Gordon there. And the best-selling comic of 2014 was the post-Superior Superman Amazing Spider-Man #1.
Oh, post-Superior
Spider-Man. That was when Peter was back in the body.
Got it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Caleb chimed in here. Original Sin was worth it for the orb, but that's it. That's all.
There's, Original Sin had some interesting ideas, but I think most of them have just basically been,
The Nick Fury thing was, I understand it was probably editorial mandate to align with the movies, but it was not handled the best.
One thing I really did like about Original Sin was the weird combinations of characters.
Oh yeah,
that went off together. Whether they were more aligned for detective work or mystic work, or there were some weird combinations that I really enjoyed.
Axis wasn't terrible it wasn't great as an event, but I think I liked the idea of characters coming out of it and being realigned in some weird like, no, good guys are bad guys are good, you know, like I think what was the Iron Man one where he was like an iPod Iron Man or whatever?
Superior Iron Man.
I didn't hate the ideas in there. It played with new technologies and things, and it gave this very like haughty, egotistic, I mean, not that Tony Stark isn't already, but like heightened version of that. Without the hero parts. So it was.
I've never read it, but a friend of mine really likes the Axis Hobgoblin series, where Hobgoblin gains heroic characteristics.
Right.
That was the main conceit of the book, that there were like not personality, but temperament, I would say.
I think that the interesting thing about Sixus, with a couple characters that have really kind of defined them since then. I mean, Havoc, the character of Havoc, who hasn't really been managed well since Peter David had a Monday Next Factor, really. He, you know, what happened to Havoc with him becoming evil and then good, and like his psyche being split and him just being an absolute, you know, mess of a human being, still continues to now. I mean, you know, in the Dawn of X Hickman verse, basically, version of him. But yeah, I mean, other than that,
okay. So we're going to move on to 2015, and the big event for 2015 was Marvel regaining the Star Wars license. And we had, with Star Wars #1 at Marvel, the first comic since the 1990s to sell 1 million copies. There have been trade paperbacks that have done it since that time, but it sold over 1 million copies. Some of that due to 78 variant covers.
Why not? Why not, really? You know,
we also had DC leaving New York and moving to Burbank, and with that came the Convergence event, which at the very least it gave us Jonathan Kent. So it was worth. It was somewhat worth something. The big event for Marvel that year was Secret Wars, and with Secret Wars, we did have the end of the Ultimate Universe, which you know, for at that point, I think there were points where Ultimate Spider-Man was by far Marvel's best-selling book.
Yeah,
and
it was basically the only Ultimate book that was actually doing well. I think you had the Ultimate X-Men kind of dying off, and you had Ultimate Avengers dying off. And
I love
Ultimates dying off.
The Ultimate X-Men book, or no, was it the Ultimates? The one that Hickman wrote, I think it was the Ultimates.
Yeah.
And then,
the Ultimates started with Millar.
Right, but I mean, as it was sort of rounding off, they had Hickman do a little bit, which was really good. And there was another writer who the name escapes me, but they did okay.
Ultimates was that
he did DC
and work on that at all?
He was the last writer on that, and there's still issues that haven't been collected. What is his name?
I don't know. It's
on
killing
DC
me.
Universe.
Yep. Oh yeah. Exactly. That's him. I cannot think of his name.
What?
Not Guggenheim.
No.
No,
He was on DC Daily. I can't think of his name.
Yeah. Well, in the chat, please.
I'm sure some fact checker will get.
Well, Caleb actually made a mention. Caleb actually said something going back to Axis.
Yeah.
One of the last things that came up there.
Oh yeah, gave up a really weird hot relationship between Monet and Sabretooth that they haven't given us any closure to. Well, there's a reason for that. Sabretooth is off the table. Let's just say
he's been put in a hole somewhere. We don't know where.
There are 2 Ultimate Universe characters still around, right? Well, Miles Morales, right?
Yeah,
and he had Miles
is around.
And then the evil Reed is still around, the Maker.
Yeah, the Maker's still around, and actually, Ultimate Wolverine, the Ultimate version of Wolverine, James Howlett, I think it was, or something. Yeah. He was around for a while, and I think they killed him off in one of the symbiote events
unceremoniously
years ago.
James,
all New X-Men.
Wrong. I was wrong. It was Josh, whatever Fialkov, took over on Ultimates.
Really?
Yeah. It was what I was thinking was Ultimate Comics X-Men. And the right. Damn it!
It's not Jeff Loeb. I know that. Jeff.
No.
That's Jeff.
You know, talk about. Do you have anybody who's like this? Like with Jeff Loeb, I love his work. I really love his work, but I find him to be such a distasteful person. He's such he's so comes. I mean, he's a rich kid, and the interviews so reek of rich kid.
So what
The
interviews?
worst example of this was a word balloon interview where
Mhm.
at the height of the 2008 economic depression, and he's literally bragging on that show about making $20,000 in one night because of when signing comics was big.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Really?
so yeah, there was it just baffles me. Like there isn't a single production he's been involved with which hasn't gone over budget. Like, how do you keep getting jobs?
Well, I mean,
It's just so
basically,
weird.
he lost his job running the Marvel TV universe once
Yeah.
every single one of his shows basically got canned and then reabsorbed under Feige. So,
Okay.
James Figueroa also has another guest, Brian Wood.
And we'll do the end. There is something there somewhere along the line. Sam Humphries was the
Sam
writer I
Humphries.
couldn't
Sam
think
Humphries
of.
That's
as
what I
well.
was
And
thinking.
he either wrote some Ultimates or some Ultimate X-Men.
But it was right at the
Yeah.
end. I
It's
remember
right at
that.
the end, and
Yeah,
then some
yeah.
of it hasn't been collected, also,
Oh.
Yeah.
which is
Okay.
strange, especially for Marvel.
Yeah.
That's a
I
little
do
strange.
want to add in here. I don't know if you were going to cover this, but Midnighter was a 2015 book,
Right.
Mhm.
by I think Steve
Yeah,
Orlando, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Steve
Yeah,
Orlando's Midnighter. That's when
I just didn't.
that's when I first started
It was
reading
it was
Steve Orlando.
really
I
hard
loved
to
it.
to gauge what was an important book and what wasn't.
I only say
as
it
I was
because
going through that.
Midnighter, as a gay out, major character in the Wildstorm universe, but also in comics in general, as the gay Batman, basically, right?
Yeah.
It was pretty big to have his own title, and it was not bad. I think Midnighter Apollo may have been a little less good. I don't remember, but I remember
See,
liking it.
I'm the other way around.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
completely the other way around. I thought the Midnighter series was fairly weak, but I really loved the interplay in the Apollo and Midnighter series.
this is what it
or
was.
Yeah.
Apollo.
Orlando and Echo. Yeah.
Caleb reminded me it was Akko's art in combination with Steve Orlando's writing that was
Okay.
killer on that first series. And
Definitely.
Akko is such an amazing artist. And I remember his Nick Fury series, or Fury, later in like a couple more years. We'll maybe get to it. Anyway, so yes, but I think I know what you're saying, Bill. I think I liked it better with Apollo, but I also liked him being single and getting to kind of be a gay man and doing his thing. We also had David remind us, Loeb did make some really shitty remarks about how no one wanted to watch a show with an Asian
Shows with
lead.
Asian leads. Yep.
Very much true, attributed to him, and obviously.
And it drives me nuts because one of my favorite series of all time is Superman Batman. His first 26 issues of that, and the device that he uses where it's all told from the characters' perspectives. And with that particular book, naturally, it bounces back between Superman and Batman, and you get insights into how they think and insights into how they think about each other. I think a lot of his work is really, really good. He just turns me off, though.
He's a horrible person. We do have another congratulations from our friend Bob Gar.
Hey,
hello.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Awesome. All right, you want me to go to 2016?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's a trivia question.
Oh boy.
For 2016, and there's also a weirdo observation and something that we don't have in the climate right now that we did. Okay. 2016, we had the beginning of Ta-Nehisi Coates' start on Black Panther. The big Marvel crossover that year was Civil War 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
We had the final issues of the New 52, which led into the DC Universe Rebirth. We had the first issue of Black Hammer.
Oh.
And we had the start of the Young Animal line at DC.
Right.
And the best-selling book that year was Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York crossover #1.
Wow.
Now, we have to give people some insight. The previous year, there were 2 other books that sold over 500,000 copies sold in Bravest Warriors and Orphan Black, #1s. And this was because this was the height of the Loot Crate, blind box phenomenon.
Right.
So this is where you get a number of those entities. Loot Crate, Funko had their own ones. It's very sad. Funko just and it had their last Smuggler's Bounty for Star Wars. I was addicted to the Legion of Collectors boxes, but very often, because the numbers were so high, that they would order things that took stuff well over 500,000. So that's why you get some that weird kind of and there's actually one book that was never available to the general public that they didn't allow into the charting, but it would have been 500,000, and that's a Loot Crate exclusive Harley Quinn book.
Oh,
that actually is Connor and Palmiotti doing their version of an origin. It's since been reprinted in trade paperbacks, but that was never ranked for sales. But there's over 500,000 copies of that too.
Huh.
So there you go. All right, you want my trivia now?
absolutely.
All right, here we go. Okay, let me hit that there. So for you two gentlemen, the New 52, as I said, started in August of 2011, and it ended in almost the midpoint of 2016. And there were 12 books that made it to 52 issues. Can you name those 12 books?
Wonder Woman,
Mm-hmm.
Action Comics,
Mhm.
Superman,
Mm-hmm.
Batman,
Mm-hmm.
Green Lantern,
Mm-hmm.
Harley Quinn,
No.
I think. No,
Harley Quinn
that's right.
started later. Yeah.
Detective.
We're at 6.
Was there a Superman book, or did you already say that?
Yeah, Superman and Action Comics.
Okay.
Did Grayson make it to 52?
No. It started as Nightwing and then became Grayson with different numbers.
So that's 7. So we got 5 more.
Dark Justice League Dark.
No.
No.
Justice League and Swamp Thing.
No, Swamp Thing did not.
Swamp Thing didn't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, for some reason I thought it did. That's right, because it ended early with Animal Man because
How many have we got so far?
I think you got
about
7.
9.
Oh,
You got 9, so you have 3 more.
is there a not Young Justice, but like Teen Titans?
No, the last Teen Titans had a renumbering. They had a new number 1 in there.
They did.
Same thing with Suicide Squad.
They did a DCU Same thing with Batgirl,
and there's 2 more.
Oh man.
And these would not be books you would automatically think would have made it this far.
Hawkman, no.
Nope.
No.
The Savage Hawkman. No, it didn't make it to 52.
Voodoo.
Hawk and Dove. Anything that Liefeld did.
The 2 that you haven't hit are Green Arrow and Catwoman.
Oh, okay.
Catwoman made it to 52 issues.
Catwoman. Because I actually was looking at a Green Arrow that was number 45. And I'm like, that one. Okay, yeah, that one.
So cool.
Wow, okay.
Oh, we got comments. Let's go through a couple more here.
Sure.
Yeah. Caleb said that scene where Midnighter bottomed did cause a lot of waves and garnered a lot of conversation, and I remember that, and I was there for that. I loved that. And
I am very frustrated because for a long time I thought this was Steve Orlando who came up with this line, or if not Steve Orlando, Tom King, and it was actually Tim Seeley. Remember with Grayson when he was Agent 38 or whatever the hell that was for Spiral, and he looked differently to people? And there's that one point where Midnighter is on lookout, and he says, "I know that ass anywhere."
Yeah.
And that was Tim Seeley who wrote that line.
Nice.
That was not Orlando, and that was not Tom King.
Because I know that Nightwing did cameo in a Midnighter issue where he teamed up. Nightwing's ass. Yep. They teamed up, and I think they were in a bathhouse or something, and Midnighter said, like, I know that anywhere, or like,
I still have it in my head. If Grayson's going to give it up for anybody, it's going to be Midnighter, because there's that whole Batman vibe too, but it's not Batman, So if he's going to dip his if he's going to dip his toe in the other pond, I have a feeling it's going to be Midnighter.
Yep.
Back to our earlier conversation about Jeff Loeb, David Tobey is, so many of the problems of the plot of Iron Fist series are fixed if they just cast an Asian Danny Rand.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I know that Iron Fist is supposed to be some white guy, some white savior kind of guy, but
give us
they didn't
Shang-Chi.
have to make him exactly
the best thing they could have done was set Iron Fist in the 70s.
Yeah,
that's what they could have done, because there were so many of those, Richard Dragon or whoever of those, white Bruce Lees
Chuck
at
Norris.
that time, and Chuck Norris, and I thought that would have been pretty cool. And it's not like it needed the interactivity with the other stuff, but well. Yep. All right, 2017. We had the first issue of the Super Sons. And again, we're on the third issue, the third series right now with Challenge of the Super Sons. The big Marvel crossover that year was Secret Empire.
Oh, yes.
Dark Knight's Metal debuted that year.
Right.
Doomsday Clock debuted that year. Mr. Miracle, Tom King's, the other dude.
Mitch Garrett.
Mitch Garrett's, which I think was a revolutionary series. I think people are going to be talking about that series for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And we also had the debut of Ed Piskor's first Grand Design series with X-Men.
Right.
And the biggest selling book that year, and this knocked me out because I just see this as such a non-entity, was the Marvel Legacy one-shot.
Interesting. Well, no, I remember when that came out. My local comic shop in Orlando had Kirkman, not Kirkman. Who wrote that? Thor. Jason Aaron. They had Jason Aaron come down and do a signing for that. And I mean, I remember it was a pretty big moment, even if it wasn't a complete continuity shakeup. It definitely was.
That wasn't Aaron's. That was Nick Spencer. Nick
Legacy?
Spencer was.
I thought that was the one with like the little foil.
Legacy was a bunch of writers. Remember that was when they and they had like the foil embossed covers, and none of them worked.
I thought it was. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It was.
I'm sorry, I was talking about Secret Empire. Was Nick Spencer?
Oh no, Secret Empire totally. Separate, but Legacy, specifically that issue, because it set up what was going to be the storylines for the next year. And Marvel had done that before, but there was something about that moment that felt really big. But I like Secret Empire. I mean, taking your Captain America, and this was sort of in the zeitgeist, right? Exploring this idea that people in power can abuse it, and we have this horrible leader in representation of the Trump administration. It all fit well for me at that time. Yeah,
and most of the controversy was, of course, because people for some reason had that USA Today article that went out, and before the book was even released, that whole Captain America is actually a bad guy this whole time. How dare they do this?
Yeah.
Then the book came out, and you're like, oh, it's because of Cosmic Cube is doing you're okay. Yeah. It's comics, people. It's comics.
They're going to work the PR however they need to, and I'm sure, 100% sure, they were like, this will cause controversy, and that's a good.
Okay,
it's a thing.
We're going to move on to 2018. One of the big events was the planned Batman Catwoman wedding for Batman number 50. We had the first issue of Immortal Hulk, which has proven to be a very popular book. We had the beginnings of the Sandman universe line of books. We had Bendis coming over to DC first with the Man of Steel, and also bringing over some of his Jinx World books. Wonder Comics would come in 2019. We also had the first issue of Die, 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 which was, again, a very important book in that you could not order it online. You had to go to a bookstore, a comic book store, to get it. At least for a time. 2018 also saw the publication of Thanos number 13, which set off Donny Cates as a big writer at Marvel. We also had the first rumblings of Me Too were really in 2017. It was really hitting in 2018 in the comics world with people like Jay Nitz and Eddie Berganza. The first book casualty was Border Town, written by Eric Esquivel, who was not a noble character, let's put it that way. We've also had a hardcover that first came out in 2018, which has been a legacy seller, and that's My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies. And in terms of the best-selling book that year, it was Action Comics number 1000.
Yep. It was a big year for Superman. Big promotional year for Superman too.
Yep. All right, so we're going to go over to 2019, and we have Conan returning to Marvel. Mm-hmm. And we also have the War of the Realms as one of Marvel's big crossovers. The other big crossover was House of X, Power of 10. I hope I have that right. I'm still going to call it Hox, no matter what. We had a very popular variation of the DC characters in Deceased. The first issue was in 2019. Spawn hit its 300th issue.
Wow.
And as a big surprise, we had the final issue of The Walking Dead out of nowhere. That series ended. And the best-selling book of 2019 was Detective Comics 1000.
And that's no surprise either. The last several years have been the big milestone years for these legacy DC characters. Batman had his 80th, Superman had his 80th, Wonder Woman just had her 80th too, I think, right?
She was 40. She debuted in 41.
So it'd be this year.
Yeah, I think it's 80th. And that'd be why they're, developing Nubia and the Araflor Wonder Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Just a big Wonder family.
Well, and they take her off the table a little bit with promoting her to godhood, and then for the big anniversary, they bring her back. I mean, that's a trope, right?
Okay, and then 2020, everything went to hell. No other way to put it. Some stuff happened in comics. DC Comics left Diamond. That's a big development. And Marvel actually had 3 crossover events, some of them ridiculously delayed, in Empire, Cross of Swords, and at the end of the year, King in Black.
Yeah, which is just, I think, just finishing now.
I haven't read the last issue, but I think it's wrapping up.
Yeah. The thing with 2020 as well is that we had a period where there were no comics. No new comics were coming out. We had, I think it was about 6 weeks at least, where there just was nothing.
My friend.
Oh, I remember Bill was like, "But look, I have comics. They are new."
Yeah.
One company that did maintain publication was Archie Comics with their digest line.
Yeah. Well,
for 2 months I was getting everything.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like in general, at your LCS, most LCSs, if they could stay open, didn't have any new product really for the shelves.
Oh my gosh. I remember my LCS in Orlando, a comic shop, former LCS, right? They were basically having like these streamed live auctions and just selling everything they had to try to keep paying the bills. And God bless them. Oh,
yeah.
Caleb jumped in here. Doomsday Clock ended.
That's right.
Okay,
yeah.
So one of the things we were talking about was that we were thinking about what our favorite series was that came out during that time. Have you guys done any? Because we kind of bailed on that, but have you guys done any thinking on that? Because I have 2 that I wanted to spotlight.
Yeah, well, I did one of my, and this is kind of hands down, and it's one of those things that consistently year after year, since I started reading like hero comics and like big comics again, since 2011. Because I jumped in with New 52 and then expanded into the X-Men universe again at Marvel and Valiant and all that stuff. one series that's been consistently always at the top of my list every single year has been the BPRD series from Dark Horse, and it's gone through so many iterations. There have been really beautiful miniseries, and it started as a collection of miniseries. It wasn't a continuous series, but they did all have legacy connective numbering. So you could actually pick up any issue of BPRD, and on the cover it might say BPRD, blah, whatever the title is. But on the inside cover, it would have the actual number, ordered number that you need to read this. And for years, it actually ended. I believe the final series ended in 2018, 2019, with the it was Hell on Earth, and then Hellboy came back, and it was BPRD Walk Through Hell. I think I can't remember.
Well,
Anyway,
two of us answer that.
we're just terrible. But yeah, you get. But consistently, it has always been incredible. Whether they're highlighting, a minor character and just giving them, a 5-issue arc where they just shine, or really just bringing very obscure references from early Hellboy. And making them a major plot point that goes on for 20, 30, 40 issues. BPRD always shined. Mike
the
Mignola
Devil You
had
Know? Yeah.
Devil You Know. That's right. That's how it ended.
Thanks, John.
And thank you very much. But through Vampire, through the year, like the 1940, 1950 year versions, and they're still coming out in miniseries form. A one-shot here, a 3-part story here. It's just always great, and the Mignolaverse has just been such an amazing thing to read, and BPRD especially, and BPRD and Hellboy are just great to read. And I would say that over the past several years since I started reading comics again, that's consistently been my favorite series. No matter what other amazing stuff comes out that year, I can always count on BPRD or the BPRD iterations as being always good.
So Caleb threw in Black Hammer, which spans most of this time period for sure, and is excellent choice. I don't know if I have one or two that would fit that whole period or even most of the period.
No, I'm not saying it has to fit the whole period, just something that came out in that period.
I mean, I definitely think that, like we said, Mr. Miracle and then Rorschach and to some extent Strange Adventures for me have been some of my favorites. Multiversity fits within that, and so as I showed earlier, I own a page from it that I love Grant Morrison. I mean, all of it. Morrison's latest stuff, not so much, and so it's hard to say that that's like a continuous work, but all of Morrison's stuff kind of connects in certain ways. And then the Hoxpox Hickman run on X-Men, which has been consuming us for the last 3 years now.
Yeah,
not that long. Not that long.
2 years.
Okay, 2 years.
Yeah. Not even 2 years.
Good.
Like
I felt like that was
summer,
really long. And I was like, oh, maybe.
Yeah. For me, the two books. One is Airboy by James Robinson and Greg Hinkle.
Oh God, that was so good.
Yeah, and I've never read something that took the form of confessional, but was so inventive and still threw some superheroics in there in the mix. I never read a book like that ever, and I don't want to see too many books like that because I hope some of my favorite creators are not in the straits that Robinson was at the point when he started writing that. But I think that's a tremendously well done series. And the other one, and I can't believe I'm saying this, is Doomsday Clock. There are things from that series that stay with me. I look forward to an eventual reread. I think I'm still too close to it right now from the original read for it to really have the resonance of some distance. But I do think that there are ripple effects from that book that we're going to be seeing for 3, 4, 5 years to come. Unfortunately, that was one case where the delays just killed its momentum. It just killed its momentum and killed its importance, I think, in some fashion. But I do think it's rare that there are comics, like the original Watchmen. I know what happened in issue 4. I know what happened in issue 10. It's like it's just ingrained. And this comes close to this. I know when the mime and the marionette were introduced. I know when, one particular revelation took place. So I think that book had a lot more resonance for me than I even allowed myself to admit. And I look forward to eventually rereading it.
I agree, because I completely forgot about the series, even though it spanned 3 years. David Tobey agrees Mr. Miracle is it. And yes, thank you. I am a gentleman and a scholar. John Westhoff, Mind Management, Harrow County.
Oh, Harrow County, yeah.
Yeah, Harrow County is very good.
And Caleb definitely absolutely agrees.
Yeah. I mean, there's just there have been some incredible series. I've said it before, and I mention it to everybody who reads comics or doesn't even read comics, and I want to, push them over that ledge and into doing it. This is really a golden age of comics. What's been happening over the past 10 years has just been incredible. And,
I don't feel that. I really don't feel that. I feel that what you ascribe as a golden age for me was the 6-7 years prior to New 52. I think that 2000 to 2010, somewhere in that mix. I just thought that Jeff Loeb was hitting it out of the park. Morrison was hitting it out of the park. Greg Rucka was hitting it out of the park. All of these writers were providing these. There was one point with DC where I was. It was when they jumped to 1 year later, and even though that was like awkward, and some of those books were a little more successful, there wasn't a single book I wasn't interested in, and I can't say that nowadays. I do think that there was another golden age of comics. I just think it predates what you're talking about. I do think that there are series that are going to be, held up in, very high esteem. One thing, like I've never finished the Jason Aaron Thor, and I know it kind of, from some accounts, putters out, and there's a little too much Valkyrie at the end. But what I've read, I've really been impressed with. So, I do think that there are series that, are going to be held in very high esteem. I just don't see the volume of what we had pre New 52.
Well, I think there's definitely very clearly, what you consider golden age of comics there versus what I'm considering golden age of comics, because I'm looking more at what's being put out on the independent and Image, Dark Horse, these other companies other than these companies that have been around for 80 years putting out, such an amazing volume of things that they've been going through these peaks and troughs for 80 years, well, for DC and for Marvel, the past 60 years. But I think like in the past 10 years, Image has had some amazing work that they've put out. Yes, there was stuff, for the 10 years prior to that, the 20 years prior to that. But I mean, Walking Dead hit its peak really here, in the past 10 years. You had Saga, yes. You also had Saga. You had,
absolutely Saga.
You've got, of course, all the stuff like I mentioned with BPRD.
A lot of the books that I mentioned, incredible. I think, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the books that you mentioned are all pretty huge. Maybe not the biggest things that Marvel had ever done or DC had ever done. But I mean, you've got some amazing work that's coming out.
It was also interesting. It was also interesting as I was going through the history. There were some books I didn't know if it was premature to spotlight them yet, like Jupiter Circle.
Yeah,
it may be the case that if you have single issues of Jupiter Circle, you'll be able to put a kid through college.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh, I've got all of those somewhere. Somewhere.
I think to Steve's point, though, I would agree more that the last, let's say, so many years have been like this golden age. And I only say that because I agree that even though Marvel and DC may not have been as strong in certain respects, across the board, you're getting more of a diverse and authentic like representation in comics than we have ever had in the history of comics. And to me, that has paved the way for some really interesting new voices, new ideas, new takes on old characters, like Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America. Even though a lot of it is very, very much inconsistent, or consistent rather, and true to the character, there's some really interesting takes going on. You know,
like I said on our last show, Mariko Tamaki on Batman.
Oh,
absolutely.
That's what I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see a biracial queer woman writing, a billionaire alpha male.
Absolutely.
And it fucking works.
Yeah. And all the new characters like Kamala, oh my God.
Kamala Khan.
Kamala Khan, I can't remember her last name.
Yeah.
And then, Miles Morales, obviously. And, there's so many more. I mean, Hulkling and Wiccan, being huge Marvel-like characters now in this epic way that I didn't ever think we'd have. Even Iceman with Sina Grace's work, following from Bendis, making one of the major X-Men founders queer. Like, there's been so many amazing moments in the last, let's say 10 years of comics that I like that. I'm more excited by that than thinking back. But I mean, again, like I think Bill, you said, and Steve, like it waxes and wanes, and with this most recent moment of just DC's layoffs and contraction.
I love that we are in a period where there is more diversity in characters and more diversity in the creative pool that people are going. I love that. I just want to see the work match things that I've seen prior to the time period.
I mean, when you look at, like, if you go back and you look at some of the stuff that DC was putting out in the 80s and Marvel, 70s and 80s, and Marvel was putting out in the 90s, I mean, there was some amazing stuff that both of the big two were putting out that are just, to me, like some of the best work that they've ever done. But then also in the same time period, they've had some of the absolute worst that they've ever done too. And it's so easy for the big two to go through like these amazing peaks where you've got companies like Vertigo coming out, like Vertigo being formed from DC. You've got Watchmen, you've got other things, Dark Knight Returns. You've got these really iconic books. And then you also have stuff that just doesn't go anywhere and just peters out and disappears in these runs that kind of,
also, as great as some of the Image stuff has been, not every Image book has been
I mean, you got some stinkers and you got some stuff that just...
And then you also have,
two issues
particularly with Image, you have amazing number ones and things just never go anywhere. And I don't know if that's because it is effectively a creator-owned atmosphere, if editorial is hesitant to help things along.
We got a bunch of comments in here. Someone who I'm not familiar with.
Hey, Mark Sheldon.
Welcome.
Hi, Mark Sheldon.
I got back into comics as an adult with Blackest Night, but when New 52 hit, I became an every Wednesday regular at the LCS. It's still going strong. Enjoying the recap tonight. Thank you.
Mark and I. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. And Mark and I share the same thing because I started getting back into comics. I blasted through all of Blackest Night and Brightest Day, and then went to the LCS to sign up for the first 10 New 52 books that I wanted in August of 2011, and that's where it went.
My favorite story about New 52. Now, remember, with New 52, iPads were only about 2 years old at that point when that came out, and I was sitting next to somebody on the train, and this guy had Justice League #1, and it was the day it came out. So it was the afternoon trip, and he was telling me, this is the first comic I've read since 1992.
Wow.
And I think there's a lot of people that, as much bashing as New 52, and admittedly, some of the books were terrible. Some of the Ann Nocenti Green Arrow, that's one of the worst comics ever. It's so bad. And Ann Nocenti can write. Her Daredevil is just as potent as Frank Miller, as far as I'm concerned. It just there was an abundance of things that weren't working, but it got so many people back in and so many adults back in.
Absolutely, for sure. It was just it appealed to a lot of people. They could forget the continuity and just jump on with what they knew, and it worked really well. We have Mudflap Boy. Hello, and congratulations!
Hello. Thank you.
episode. That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Caleb, yeah, Why the Last Man, of course, 52. And for manga, so we always, I mean, I know historically we don't talk a lot about manga, which is, you know, I read a little bit, but I don't even read as much as a lot of people.
The manga I read is so weird. You know, like, God's honest truth, I tried with Attack on Titan. I truly tried.
It's rough, though. It's really rough in the beginning.
It's uneven.
Even by the 5th volume, it just seemed to be going in a circle.
Yeah.
And then I tried one of the ancillary series, and that was really weird, about this like woman who was a maid. It was fucked up.
One Piece.
The manga that I read is really weird stuff. Like it's revivals of other things, like Ultraman or Infinity Force, which is a lot of the characters like Gatchaman and Kashin together. So that's like I read weird manga.
We should definitely bring it up more often. But yeah, One Piece. If you're not familiar with One Piece, it has dominated the last however many years. And then John, of course, leans more towards what Steve said. Amazing work coming out of every week of the last 10 years. Just not the big two. Which again, I feel like that's it's to the detriment of those companies, but to the benefit of creators or of people who enjoy art, because they've just gotten to do some cool stuff.
And it's not to say that the big two haven't had some great stuff in the past 10 years. It's just, you know, you have those great big highs and those low lows.
Oh, another one. Hold on. Caleb's like, for what it's worth, I don't read One Piece. I've tried, not for me. I just know how important it's been. And absolutely, I tried reading it. And when I was in Japan, there was so much One Piece stuff. And I was just like, I don't get it.
It was in Shonen Jump, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So I must have read it there once. And I'm just trying to think. I remember buying One Piece Japan, but I think I got them for Vince B at the 11 o'clock comics. I think I watched an animated episode. I'm like, oh my God, this is so not for me. Like, it's just, it's just.
Kids love those.
And I know there's manga I would like. There's that series Inuyasha, I think it's called. Hey everybody, you're listening. Somebody gets superpowers, but he's like 76 years old.
The one series, and I don't remember when it came out, but Pluto, it kind of takes the Tezuka stuff and like more modernizes and Pluto is amazing, amazing series. 100% recommend that one.
And 20th Century Boys, I imagine.
Yes,
there's some stuff there I would be interested in. Maybe we should have a manga thing, like everybody, get a new manga.
So I brought back some manga from Japan because I wanted to eventually read it, translate it, what have you. And I'm finally getting to that point where I might be able to read and understand a few words.
Awesome. So you can do a scanslation.
Oh,
all right. Well, we have another segment for this show, and wow, we're at 10:48 already. I was worried we weren't going to have enough for 90 minutes, but we do have. And since it's the 200th episode, we would like to spotlight a book that each of us chose that is a series in its 200th issue. So we'll start as we always do with Steve. Steve, what 200th issue anniversary book did you pick?
Well, speaking about how there really hasn't been anything super amazing at Marvel that I love so much in the past 10 years. Silver Surfer's revival with Dan Slott and the All Reds is just it's a treat. If you've ever had a chance to read any of it, there've been, I think, because of how Marvel went through all of their weird promotional things, they're Marvel Now, Marvel Next, Marvel Also Now with an exclamation point. There are several series that they did, and it's all basically the same storyline, just cut up into different volumes. But their Silver Surfer revival was just great because it took all the weirdness, of the history of Silver Surfer and the cosmic nature of his powers and his past and his adventures, and just really dove headfirst into it. And it's extra wonderful because the character of, I believe her name is Dawn, if I can remember, because it's been a while since I had read this, but Dawn Greenwood, who manages this inn, this bed and breakfast, in a small Massachusetts town. She and Silver Surfer hit it off, and they fall in love, and it's just this fantastic love story. But also, you get how wide-eyed and just absolutely enthralled Dawn is through all these adventures through space, where Silver Surfer himself, of course, is famously emotionless and very kind of almost robotic in his responses to things. And here's this Dawn who is just absolutely wide-eyed and amazed, but also takes everything in stride, and it's just so much fun. This book is just great. And with issue number 200, it's actually issue number 6 of I think volume 2 or 3 of the all red slot version. Oh, but it basically, in this one, you've got a really cool special guest in Peter Parker, Spider-Man, shows up to help sort of battle these weird, Terra forms that take on the image of, a person's greatest fear. And meanwhile, there's also the very, very personal story of Silver Surfer finding Dawn's mother, a woman who walked out on her family 13 years prior. And so Dawn is having her adventure talking with her mother, who is a horrible person, who walked out on her family and never wanted to be a mother, and hates the fact that her daughter's found her, and hates the fact that Dawn's sister is going to have a baby and she'll be a grandmother. She's just like, ugh, this is garbage. Dawn gets to confront that while Silver Surfer is confronting his greatest fears in the form of like these heralds of Galactus that he's been, that he'd been battling over the past, 30 years, 40 years of storytelling. It's just fun. The dialogue is great. It's hilarious. It's just the colors and the artwork. If you're a fan of All Red, and Mike and Laura here are just in top form with how gorgeous everything is. I have to say, this is such for a 200th issue, and again, it's 200 based on legacy numbering for all the years of Silver Surfer issues. It's a fantastic one. It's a little bit longer because, of course, it's an anniversary issue. So they get in enough pages so that they can tell a proper story. And of course, nothing ever ends in Silver Surfer without a cliffhanger. So it just kind of course, moves on into the next adventure out in outer space, which is where, of course, All Red's weird designs and images, shine the most. So I love this book, and for 200th issue, it's a great one. Came out, I believe, 2016.
Okay. If you can just get this, Brian, I'm not sure if you can. This is one of my favorite covers here from this series.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have Galactus. Yeah. And, one thing I really liked about this series, Brian, have you read this?
Oh, yes. 100%.
Okay, because I'm going to say, this was, as close to Doctor Who.
Dan Slott basically said as much when he took it on. He's like, this is going to be my take on Doctor Who with Silver Surfer. And absolutely 100%. Amazing series. Right, this episode, or this issue specifically, I was going to add to what Steve said. He pairs this gut-wrenching emotional moment, very, very real to many people when they have had a sibling or a parent who is left and just gone away, and then they have that reunion, and it does not go the way that they hoped it would. And in this case, in a very tragic way, in some respects. Yeah. With what happens with Dawn, and then who ends up helping out, but the fact that he paired that really gut-wrenching moment about a character who basically only lasted the length of this series, and then Silver Surfer kind of went on with his did his own left. So this character hasn't stuck around, but the focus on that really human moment, contrasting with Silver Surfer dealing with his demons of his past, which was the Magnus, Mephisto. Thanos, I think, was in there probably.
That was a great moment. I do have to say, where one of the changing creatures turns into Mephisto, and Spider-Man punches him, and his immediate response is, "That made me feel really good for some reason."
But Shalabal, it just it allowed the focus to be on both this real human moment and celebrate Silver Surfer's legacy and all the kids. I've read Silver Surfer pretty much, not from the beginning, because I wasn't alive, I think, when it came out, but I have gone back, and Silver Surfer is one of the series that I have read covered, end to end. And this is, to me, one of the highlights of the whole Silver Surfer series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, Bryan, you kind of have the mic anyway, so why don't you tell us about your 200th issue?
I'm going to pull up my photo. So I will admit, having had sold my comic book collection, this became a lot harder of a challenge. But I mean, also, like Steve and I were talking before, like going back and trying to find any of these is like good luck. And I actually didn't have X-Men, Uncanny X-Men 200. I never had that.
Really?
In my collection. No, I should have.
Oh.
I mean, if I had been able to. Anyway, it's obtainable. It's not like it's hard or expensive.
And that awful magnet, that awful costume of his.
Yeah, so
let's
just get that out of the way. It's a dumb costume that is. I mean, I don't mind it because it gives us a little skin, and if you're into Magneto, I mean, whatever. But like that M and just it doesn't work. So, this is a pivotal moment in the X-Men legacy, X-Men series, and written by Chris Claremont, art by Ralph Romita. Not Ralph. Is it Ralph? Ralph Romita Jr. John.
Ralph.
Yeah, Ralph.
Ralph Romita. He's
Ralph Romita. Ralph Romita. John Romita Jr.
So now in my head, if you've ever heard interviews with John Romita or John Romita Jr., they say that Kingpin looks exactly like John Romita's brother. So in my head, that's now Ralph Romita.
Oh my God, I love it. That's
Ralph Romita. He's not Wilson Fisk. He's Ralph Romita.
This is a pivotal moment in the history of the X-Men because it is the moment which some people may remember vaguely when Magneto really kind of is redeemed. I mean, he's sort of redeemed before this, but this is that first like Magneto is the new Professor X. Professor X.
Yeah.
Leaves, like he doesn't die exactly, but it's like he's dead and he's off the table, and Magneto comes in and really starts to lead the X-Men. And what I love about this is how it relates into what we're looking at now with House of X, Hoxpox and the Hickman era, because you have a imperfect but heroic political leader of the X-Men in Magneto. And to me, that's a far more interesting story than just villain, megalomaniac, whatever. And this story, as I was reading it again, I read it today. Chris Claremont, first of all, do you guys remember who Neil Conan is from NPR?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Claremont name checks Neil Conan not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times in this one issue. It is hilarious. Which I love. I mean, I listen to NPR all the time. So yeah, of course, like, he was too. I'm sure he was just like a fanboy, like, oh, I got to put him in. But it's the dialogue. Oh my God, the dialogue that both other characters say about Magneto, good or bad, and then Magneto's monologues in this issue are breathtakingly interesting and appropriate because it gets to what is the state or society. How are they going to treat someone like Magneto who just wants to protect his people and is doing things like, whatever the Russian submarine that I think he raised out of the water, or I forgot exactly what he does in a prior issue. But like, he is standing up for his people to protect his people at this point in his life. And he's this impassioned speech that I'm not going to reproduce at all. But contrast all of that with your, very, mixed X-Men team of like Nightcrawler and Rachel, Storm with the Mohawk, Cyclops with the giant yellow, and then the blue, like one piece suit. The Wolverine in the brown and yellow, which has kind of come back. Cyclops. The art is so dynamic. Ralph. God, why do I want to keep saying Ralph? John Romita Jr., JR, like his dynamic, and his oh gosh, Hit potatoes? What?
Remember hit potatoes? So yeah, Ralph Romita is a big fan of hit potatoes.
But like no, the art of John Romita Jr. is just so dynamic, and I love his later stuff, to be sure. Like I don't think any of his work is bad, but I look at this era. I don't know if he just changed and got sketchier or got I don't know, but I look at this as like some of his best work. It's just gorgeous. So gosh, I don't know. I love this issue. I was digging through my I have a couple hardcover omnibus, whatever collections, and I don't have the one that covers this, which I now need to own.
Yep.
It's just gorgeous. Did you guys read this or check?
Oh yeah, when I got back into comics, my first issue of X-Men was I think 193. Is that the first Firestar? 193, I think.
193.
Yeah, I think that's the first. Whatever the first Firestar is, that was the first issue of X-Men that I read when I came back to comics, and from being a little kid. And with this issue, they did do some lead up with Magneto. I remember I quickly got all the Secret Wars issues, and that was a surprise for me reading and seeing that the Beyonder grouped Magneto with the heroes. And I think with this issue, while you can call him a hero, I think this was the first time that you could justify not referring to him as a villain. And just through the 80s, 90s, the big bad came back, but through the 80s, he was a very complex, interesting character, both in X-Men and in New Mutants. Particularly New Mutants when he becomes the headmaster there. For them. There's some interesting stuff. I also just wanted to chime in regards to the Neil Conan. He's a very good friend to Claremont, but Claremont's best friend is Maureen Corrigan of NPR. I came across that in an interview. Yeah,
that's so funny. Well, that explains a lot more. But so John was saying he loves those arms, and then James as well, actually. That's fabulous, and that's the Hill of Dying. So James has been doing this great X-Men Mutant a Day series, and I just want to put it out there, and I don't think you've done it yet, but you should revisit this costume.
This costume. Yes.
I'm just going to put that as a challenge for you to reproduce and make it sexy.
All right.
I think you can do it.
Go ahead. Okay, the old guy's going to go for an old book, but it's one of the first books for a young kid. Okay, so the 200th issue of Superboy, which is bannered as Superboy starring the Legion of Superheroes. It was effectively the Legion book, but I don't know why it took them so long to do something with that. This was my first issue of the Legion as a 6-year-old. And it's a Gala 200th issue. You see there the Legionnaire Bride of Starfinger, which is one of the dumbest Legion villains. But this involves the marriage of Bouncing Boy and Duo Damsel. So this was my very first Legion issue. This is a funny story. So I have every DC Showcase Presents. Again, these books are in black and white. Telephone books, they call them in Japan and some other places. And I was thinking, oh my God, since I have DC Universe Infinite, let me go to the digital version so I can at least read in color. And that book is in black and white on the DC Infinite platform.
Weird.
Yeah, it's weird. There's a couple of books like that. There's some Aquamans and stuff. So with this book, it's written by Carrie Bates with art by Dave Cockrum. Again, Dave Cockrum, incredibly important, not just to the Legion, but to the X-Men. And in terms of costume design, he was one of the best. And it's a very conventional story about Bouncing Boy and Duo Damsel are going to have their wedding, and this dude Starfinger and his dragons want to mess it up. It's not even clear why. But it was like the Bronze Age, and you just didn't care. It was also my very first, and I'm not sure if you can get this double-page spread.
Ooh.
And that's the actual wedding ceremony.
Wow!
And if you notice here, this is Martian Manhunter, John Jones. So this was the first time that it established that he was still alive during the Legion's time. I didn't even know who John Jones was at that point, I don't think. And it just goes back and forth with the Starfinger trying to capture. He already captured one of the one of the configurations of Dual Damsel, was trying to get the other one. Again, she can split into two. So a very conventional story, but as an introduction to the Legion and opening a book and seeing there's got to be 30 characters in here. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun as an introduction. And then right after that, there was a reprint of a Composite Superman story, and Composite Superman got his powers from the Legion statues. It's all weird. But that's the Silver Age. But I eventually was starting to piece together what the Legion was. Okay, Superboy is Superman when he's younger, but this takes place in the future. If I could get this at 6 years old, I don't know why people have such continuity problems.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But it's weird, at 6 years old, that was when I first started reading superhero comics. So this was one of the first, and it's always stayed with me that with the conceit of the 200 issue, there being a sense of event, and for most people, the biggest event that they'll have in their lives is their marriage, is their wedding. So it stayed with me for some time. I mean, there's other books that I thought about going to Brave and the Bold 200, which had the introduction of the Outsiders. I have a ridiculous number of 200 books. I have the 200 Superman and 200 Batman and 200 Blackhawk from the 60s. I don't know. I never even went after it. The 200th issue of Hellblazer is really weird. I was like, no, it's going to take too long. But it's funny. I went back to one of my first comics when we were choosing this, and honestly, it's a terrible story. It really, I mean, it's terrible. The dragons don't make sense. Starfinger doesn't make anything. There's never any justification why he wants the two, how
what?
The
why
kidnapping of those two.
Why is he called Starfinger?
I think his powers come from a finger, and he's got a helmet on that's kind of like Black Manta, and you never see his face. Yeah, it's one of those things like Pulsar Stargrave. I mean, the Grimbor Legion has some amazing villains, but they also have a lot of duds. Yeah.
Well, Shirley Bassey will not be singing about this one. So.
Oh my god.
Starfinger.
My god, that goes with Star Booty from RuPaul, right? I want to have Star Booty interact with Starfinger.
Well, there is a sort of Star Booty with Shirley Bassey, because she also sings the same theme to Moonraker.
Oh, that's right.
And it's actually called Moonraker. And
Moonraker. Sorry,
just like the Moonraker goes in search of a dream of gold. And it's Shirley Bassey, so there's no subtlety.
Moonraker is one of my favorite James Bond movies, and I'll tell you why. Because I watched it as a kid with my dad. I watched a bunch of James Bond when I was a kid with my dad. And it was always the most bizarre, zany, colorful, and ridiculous of all of the Bonds. And this was Roger Moore, right?
Yeah.
His era is some of the more outlandish and bizarre Bond, right? But just the Jaws character, and then his little girlfriend with the pigtails, and then they go to the moon, and then that song. There's just a gold mine of material there that I don't think a lot of people have really ever, because they just they hear it's the stinker, but 100% watch it. It's gold.
And also with that, because it's 1980, they have the standard theme at the beginning, and then they have the disco theme at the end credits.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I gotta watch
disco
it again.
Remix.
So James is evidently working on a first appearance Forge for his series. So I'm excited. I think Forge is another character a lot of people sleep on, and there's a lot of cool stuff you could do. And David Tobey wants a comic called Old Man Zanowitz. So,
Who'd want that?
Is it to contrast with your what did you say earlier? Your young boys anime? I don't know. It's like
Young
you gotta have
boys
the
anime.
I guess, but yeah, who'd want that? That'd be like me and my friend Tom Moynihan going through the ruins of New Jersey. I don't know. Who the hell wants to read that? It's not like we'd be like meeting the Hulk family or anything.
James also added the Roger Moore era is like the silver age of James Bond, and
Yeah.
It's
bronze-ish,
the
but
goofiest, but I will say, for my birthday 3 years ago, we were looking for something to do. We were up in the Tanglewood area,
hmm
and we moved back and forth between Tanglewood and Albany. They're not that far from each other, and we went to a revival house and saw The Man with the Golden Gun,
ooh,
and that's my favorite of the Moore Bonds,
That's
because
good.
like the silliness hadn't really snuck in there as much.
It starts out strong and good and classic
Yeah.
Bond, and then it just
Mhm.
devolves into that.
As much fun as Spy Who Loved Me is, it's goof. I mean, the goof factor just, and by the time of Octopussy, it's just like way up
Well,
there.
they're not even trying with those titles anymore. It's like Octopussy, can get it. Get
Those
it?
are the ones my
Yeah,
dad
come
liked
on.
the most because he liked the really campy, sexy, ridiculous. He's sleeping with everyone in ridiculous configurations and vehicles.
Yeah.
People
I
like
mean, there's just a weirdness in Live and Let Die. It's like James Bond's in Harlem at one
Oh,
point.
God.
It's just a weirdness to that. Because they didn't know what kind of movie to make. For
Yeah.
the first post Connery, and I love On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Oh yeah.
It's the best ending of any Bond film. A lot of people always say that if Connery had been in that would have, because the script is fantastic. The script is so good for that movie, and Lazenby's not bad.
No.
He's really not that bad.
Yeah.
And I got so frustrated because I was in such a Bond mood, like 2 weeks ago, and then I discovered they took the Bond channel off of Pluto, and they were all streaming on I think Tubi and Pluto,
Mhm.
or Tubi and Vudu.
Voodoo,
Yeah, and it was all gone. So
Yeah, they switch those up so frequently. I mean, they've been on probably exclusive to almost every streaming service for the past couple of years. They just keep trading them out. Like Amazon will have them, and then Netflix will have them, and then like you said, Tubi or Vudu will have them, and then there'll be Peacock or whoever. It's just there's no rhyme or reason. Everybody has their turn at the Bond.
yeah, but right now it's only to pay. That's the only way you can get them right now.
They'll be back.
I have DVDRs of at least the early films, but I have to go digging.
DVD-Oz, you mentioned.
I don't know how I can watch so many movies. All right.
Oh.
I don't know how do we get to Bond? How we got to Bond from Shirley
Legion
Bassey?
Superheroes, of course.
To Shirley Bassey.
Finger.
He's a shitty Legion villain.
He'll fight you with dragons and Starfingers. What else he did?
We're going into some other place. Have you guys ever heard Shirley Bassey's version of Pink's "Get the Party Started"?
No.
Yes. That whole album is beautiful and amazing. Oh, I love that.
You have to hear it, Steve. It's
yes.
the other one that I would recommend for Shirley Bassey of like that she's just incapable of subtlety is there's a song from Sunset Boulevard, As If We Never Said Goodbye, and she does a version of it. There's like two that are out there on YouTube, and it's so over and it's like by the third line of the verse, she just like you'll see what I mean.
I love that she late in her career decided to revisit all of these classics and more recent songs.
Yeah, and worked with one of my favorite bands, Manic Street Preachers, Wrote a song for her, the girl from
Really?
Tiger Bay.
Mm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's okay. The Mannix demo is a little better
Oh no.
for my turn, but yeah, no, I just
Wow.
it's a shame she never like toured here after a point, because I
Mm.
definitely would have gone see her.
Oh, I
You
bet
know,
that'd
oh
be
my
fun.
God, yeah.
Well, we always have the Muppets episode.
With a warning, but let's not. How friggin' sick are you of hearing about the goddamn Mr. Potato and the 6 Dr. Seuss books that almost no one knows about? It's not like
That
they're
the
the marquee
publisher
book.
decided not to
Yeah.
publish. Yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah.
They just
Publisher
had
who has
on,
the rights to it decided, nobody wants to read these 6.
The Mr.
and
Potato Head thing is such a tempest in a teapot that I really don't care. The Dr. Seuss thing, the only part of it that I do agree at least a little bit with is, I mean, okay, first of all, the people who don't know, right? The foundation or the estate of Dr. Seuss's real name.
Theodore Geisel.
Thank you. Like, they pulled them. They didn't
Yeah.
have to. They weren't shamed into it. They
No.
decided proactively, you know what? We want our father and or grandfather, whatever, to have the best legacy going forward. We don't want this to become an issue down the road. Let's just pull these off, because they weren't great. They weren't like cash cows, and they're not any of the big ones. So yeah, who cares, right? But the stupid potato head thing is just the most insane, ludicrous. Like, the fact that people are making it a thing, it's just yeah, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, right? No one should be surprised.
Yeah.
Even the Muppets thing, right? This is kind of how we got there,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
Disney was just being proactive. Like, they didn't want to make a scandal, so they said, "Oh, we're just going to put this warning there so people know." And they didn't hide the episodes in the vault, you know. Like,
And
There's only
variations of that
one-
same warning are on almost every Disney cartoon prior to 1952.
Oh yeah, like
Yeah,
Dumbo and all that.
Yeah.
I think there's only one, maybe 2 episodes that aren't included in the Muppet. Now that they have the Muppet streaming,
Well,
one of
is
them is featuring.
because the dude was a child molester.
Yeah,
And then another was the Kay Ballard was the episode with Kay Ballard was the one where they could not clear the music rights on 2 songs.
right.
weird. That's so
Yeah.
crazy that you
Yeah.
find that issue nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And it's so silly. It's like I don't. The being all up in arms about the warning, is just ridiculous. I mean, just it is a warning. Like, you need to know what's out there. Parents want to know, because these, if you're showing them to kids today, these kids didn't grow up watching this on TV. Like, it wasn't airing Saturday mornings or Friday evenings for them when they were 6 years old. They're 6 years old now. They don't watch live TV. Everything's streaming. And, if you're going to plop a kid down in front of a bunch of shows that you have a nostalgic feeling for, maybe it's a good idea that somebody reminds you, hey, some of these are a little bit iffy. Like, some of these depictions of people.
What's funny is the same-ish people who wanted ratings and really demanded we put ratings on games and everything.
Yeah.
They're the ones decrying people putting notices and warnings on things now. It's like, what?
And not all but some of them, but these are people who don't read complaining about books that
books that they don't know and they've never read. I mean, except for, I think there's only one, I saw 2. I saw on Mulberry Street, and then something about the zoo.
The zoo one has some notoriety. Like, that one I actually did hear of. The book with the Cat in the Hat with the questions, I never heard of that book.
Yeah.
And that's the latest among the 6. It happened on Mulberry Street. There was an animated version of that in the 40s, which is supposed to be very touching.
I
don't think the lead character is Asian in the film version. I may be wrong. When I was a kid, the thing was Little Rascals. That there were a number of Little Rascals episodes that they took out of circulation, which were just the most extreme. And Little Rascals is one of the most complicated series out there, because yes, you had episodes which had these really questionable depictions, but at the same token, that's the only series till you get to the Dead End Kids that showed black and white kids as equals.
Yeah.
And that's a really complicated history because it's like it absolutely should be something that's championed, and now it's like there's not as much notoriety for them.
Mhm.
Whereas it aired every morning and afternoon at points when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that type of comedy, the Hal Roach studio stuff. I love all that stuff. Laurel and Hardy, the Todd and Pitts, the boyfriends. Yeah, I could go all day.
So David Toby's
all day.
You think your childhood media was weird? Check out Australia's Round the Twist. I've never heard of that, and I would love to.
Like something we definitely have to investigate.
Also, it's almost if it was never about concern for other people at all. Totally right.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is kind of late here, so we're going to start wrapping this episode up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so. I got to do that again. I'm sorry. Oh, it's late. Take two. Okay, we're going to wrap this. Damn it, Steve. Okay. Okay, we're going to wrap this episode up, and when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. And we do something similar here. We woof at whether it be a film or a TV program or a comic book or a charitable initiative, we woof at anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I've got to fix that in editing. We'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, surprise. I'm going to be talking about a TV show. And I was very much between two different TV shows, but because of when this is airing right now and how soon it'll be, I want to give a shout out and my woof to WandaVision, which wraps up with its final episode on Friday, March 6th, which is tomorrow for us, and actually in about 40 minutes. This series has been incredible. If you have not watched it or have not given it a chance yet, please do so, because now you can actually stream and binge the entire series as of tomorrow morning. It is just a wild ride. It's an exploration of trauma in the most Marvel way possible, in something that could probably not have been done at any other time, in TV or film history that would have the same style, the same type of impact, and the same, creativity attached to it. Just amazing cast, lots of great stories, it's the first real, I don't want to call it a retcon, but full explanation of things in the Marvel universe that they really haven't been able to explore for a particular character, the Scarlet Witch, and actually naming her the Scarlet Witch. It's such an exciting show, and I've been looking forward to it every single week. I just can't wait until Friday so I can see that episode. It'll be sad that it'll be over, but I can't wait to see how it ends.
Oh, what are we looking at here? We're looking at 38 minutes. All right, maybe. Yeah. And the best development out of this, Catherine Hahn, superstar.
Amen.
Catherine Hahn, she's the voice of, it was Agatha all along. Like, she's the singer on that. I had no idea. And I just, I love Catherine Hahn so much.
No.
And Elizabeth Olsen, she's been great too. Everybody's been great in this show.
I did love reading an interview with the showrunner, and there's so much speculation about characters we might see at the end who are manipulating things. And the showrunner was like, "Oh my God, there's going to be so many people disappointed they got it wrong." So that'll be interesting. Whatever happens in the next few hours, and also I saw that they're going to have a documentary about the making of the series.
Oh, neat!
Now coming up.
That's coming out after the finale airs. Yeah.
All right, Brian, what is your Wolf of the Week?
So it's not out yet, but as some of you may know, I play a lot of Fortnite. This is a game that consumes about an hour of my life every day. With my boyfriend, we'll just play, in the evening to wind down. And they've done superhero mashups. They had this whole season devoted to Marvel that I talked about. They announced that they're doing a limited comic book series with Batman. So it'll be Batman / Fortnite Zero Point, and Zero Point is not, you don't need to really know or care about what Zero Point is, but basically it's this thing in Fortnite that is why the Fortnite world is interacting with Marvel and DC and all this other stuff. So that's awesome. I mean, it's I'm sure it's going to be fine. I'm not like expecting grand art out of this. It's a fun little mashup. But if you are a Fortnite player, you should know that if you buy the physical issues, and you have to buy the physical issues, I believe, you get a code, as we talked about earlier, back to the old polybagged, combo code, whatever. You get a code, and it will give you in-game loot, skins, emotes, all that crap that is basically like this microtransaction thing that everybody in Fortnite is into. So please check it out when it comes out. If you are a fan of Fortnite, if you know a fan of Fortnite who may or may not currently be going to an LCS because of reasons, and you wanted to share said codes with that person, please feel free to do that too. I think that would be quite a generous thing for anyone to do.
Gee, I wonder if there's anyone you know who buys every DC comic there, Bryan.
I mean, I'm just putting it out there. I'm sure the universe will hear and respond accordingly. But yes, anyway, check it out. It's written by what's his name? Christos Gage. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad he's doing some work with a DC character. That's awesome. Oh,
yeah,
cool.
I haven't really lost the bubble on what he's been up to lately, other than his other.
I know he wrote something for Dynamite. I think it may have been a James Bond series, and he had tweeted or something saying, like, "Folks, don't get mad at me. Like, this was already in the can like a year and a half ago."
Yeah,
before it got drawn. So check his Twitter feed. I think he addresses it. But he's been doing some stuff, and still some stuff for Marvel too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any like high profile things, but no, he's a very good writer.
We had some woofs here. I didn't want to disregard before we get going. From John Runyon, Woof of the Week from San Diego. Not San Diego, South Dakota. Congrats to you once again for your 200th episode. Shout out to the blooper reel just now for Woof of the Week intro. And then, of course, our dear friend and co-comic book bear host Caleb sending 3 big woofs out to 200 more episodes. It's possible.
I have to check. There is sort of some blooper material in there. I remember the one time when Justin was talking about the golden age, not the golden age. The New Frontier. No, he was talking about the golden age, the James Robinson, Paul Smith series, and he totally got something wrong. And we've got material, but we have some stuff. With, there's some stuff where I just Peter fall David. Apart. I always fall apart at the end.
There's a great Peter David episode. We were interviewing him, and it was about the Hulk with what is that?
The Pantheon.
The Pantheon. What did he call it? I just thought it was so much fun. Parthenon. Or
the
something.
Parthenon.
The Parthenon. And Peter David was so confused.
and then there was Amalgam Comics, and he referred to it as Amaglam.
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 And to this day, I call it Amaglam.
Amaglam.
Also, if you're going to your LCS or you're expecting this to come in a shipment, David's Nottingham is coming out next week after a small delay because of shipping. And David, I will tell you that Nottingham #1 is not in my box, but at the same token, Noctera #1 is not in my box, and Avengers number 34 or 40, whatever the hell the current issue is. So you're in good company.
Yeah,
you're in good company.
David, I'm going to go to my LCS, which I have never been to here in the Shoreline, Seattle area, and I'm going to make sure next week I get that. And if they don't have it, I'm going to. I don't know what I'll do. I'll ask them to reorder it, whatever they can do. I don't know how that works.
I will angrily stuff my feet in.
Well, none of the videos, none of the bloopers would be video. I'm trying to think. God, there were some funny things.
So evidently, Peter David put the Pantheon Parthenon joke in Maestro.
Oh my God, that's funny. That's funny.
Does he refer to any podcast that he may have been on in the past 5 years where something was mispronounced repeatedly, even after corrections were given?
There's some. I'd have to. The only thing is, I have most of the raw tapes are gone.
Ah,
But I do have for the early episodes because I literally put them on disc.
Mhm.
You know. Um, I'll dig around, see if I can find some blooper stuff.
yeah.
Steve, wasn't there one episode where a book fell on your head?
Something fell on me.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, and it was like like you could hear it. And like what was that? Like it was just a big thing. Like what was that? It's like
And then somebody had a pet thing.
Oh, I think several of us have had pet.
Several of
Yeah,
us have
had
had pet
a
things.
Yeah.
pet thing where the pet
I mean,
just like jumped on the keyboard or something.
oh,
Uh,
I've had my cats. I had the one time where when Ruvani was just with us for a week, where she basically sat on me the entire time because she was feeling
Yeah.
very very sick. But yeah, I mean, she's climbed over things, and Marlin's done stuff, and Yanto's knocked shit off. Yeah.
So it's Maestro PAX #2, if anyone wants to look it up.
Okay. I
Lovely.
also remember there was one time where I got a knock on the hotel door while we were doing episodes. It scared the shit out of me. Oh my god!
That's got to be fun.
Are you podcasting in there? We do not allow that at this
I
establishment.
only had one time that what they called it. They said, "Are you going to be finished soon?"
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, wow.
And I also realized that the way that the rooms on the particular floor was because I like know those hotels left inside out because I stayed in them so much. That where I was recording was right by the headboard of the next room. So yeah, so that I wouldn't have liked that at 11:30. And I don't even think we were doing the show. I think it was just Steve and I, like yapping.
Probably.
Yeah, I remember Steve. Remember one time we went to 3 a.m.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
I do remember that, and I thought it was just so much fun because you didn't even notice until we were like, holy shit, it's 3 a.m. We got to get up in like 2 hours. Yeah,
so
fun stuff.
And then there's some sad things too. Like I remember when we did the first live show in New York, and the thing that Bob Joy had set up, none of that recorded.
Oh, forgot about
that. Yeah.
Oof.
That's an episode. If people want to listen to like a really different episode, the live show that we did in New York was packed mainly because American Horror Story was right after us.
Yes.
So we had like this, like when we asked the audience to do the woof, it's like it sounds like 7,000 people. So if you've never heard that and are fairly new to the show, listen to that show. It's an interesting show. We had some good guests. Jamal Eigel was on that show, and Brian, you had your friend from college, I think, and she actually like won trivia questions.
My gosh, that's right. I think Clara. Yeah, that's crazy. It was a really all of those rock bar shows were fun.
Yeah, and it was the birthday of like 5 people we knew. It was like Alan and Rob Stager and Tom Norden. It was a bunch. This is a birthday for a bunch of people. And Matt Timmerman. There's a bunch of people, and we had a cake. Cakes are good. Now I want cake.
No,
I want cake.
Rob, I want cake. At night.
Go get it. Make it.
Rob, cake now.
We should have had a cake for a 200th episode, so it'll be a virtual one. But I'm just telling people because this was kind of lo-fi for an anniversary episode, but we're gonna do something very special next year for our 10th anniversary. So look out.
Caleb's got some cake for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Very nice.
All right. We're going to wrap this episode up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do it with an outro. All right. We are you want to do more? I didn't do my Wolf of the Week.
No, wait.
Oh, Jesus. This is going to take me like 10 days to edit. Okay, here we go. My Wolf of the Week is a film that Steve supplied for me today. Thank you for that, Steve. And this is a documentary on the all-girl group The Go-Go's, which is titled The Go-Go's. So no problem trying to locate it there, what the name of the movie is. And the Go-Go's were a band that formed in 1979 in Los Angeles. They were the first girl group to achieve a #1 album with Beauty and the Beat in 1982. The album came out in 81, was #1 in 82. And they're known for a number of their hits: Our Lips Are Sealed, We Got the Beat, Head Over Heels, Vacation. And it goes through their entire history. They lasted up until 1985, broke up, got back together, got back together, got back together at various points. And they, in 2018, they had a Broadway musical based on their music called Head Over Heels, which is remarkably LGBT oriented. If you've never seen it, I imagine now that we are going to have some, bus and truck tours, and theater will be coming back. Hopefully there'll be some regional productions of it, because I imagine it would do very well in certain cities. And it features all the members of the group, and it's great music and a great story. And it's, they were kind of debauched. I mean, one of the members even got thrown out of Ozzy Osbourne's dressing room, and that must take some doing. So some wild stories, some touching stories, and really good music. So if you're unfamiliar with the group, it's not a bad introduction. If you're familiar with the group, it's a great reintroduction, possibly. So the Go-Go's, which is on the Showtime platform, and you can also purchase or rent it on some other digital platforms. So again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. Steve, goddamn it! I haven't had a drop to drink too, here, folks. Jesus. Okay, again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. And if you want to listen to us, please download us through iTunes, listen to us through Stitcher Radio, or catch us on some of the other podcatching platforms. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Brian Pittard.
And I'm Steve Morey.
Thank you for joining us for our 200th episode. Also, if you're listening to the audio version, you'll notice we have a new theme. It is a song called My Machine by the group Battles. I did my own little remix of it. The main version has a vocal by Gary Newman, and I didn't want vocals, but I love Gary Newman. So that's our new theme. It's time for a new theme. So until next time. I don't know why I made such a big deal about that. I already said I'm Bill Zanowitz.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
You're going to hear a wolf and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Wolf.